Gordon gave us an example, gave us an understanding of what his idea is, that this is a love story. That's what he said. And so I'd like for him to just start again that conversation that he's already started about this love story. He said it's not about, what did I say? I said something else.
White allies.
Yeah, white allies. For me it is. It's like John Brown, but it's okay. I'm good with the love story. Yes. So let's talk about it. Yes.
I guess for me, it's tricky. Obviously, I'm a white guy. That's no secret. But I think, we are one humanity. The state of the world right now is, in the aftermath of colonialism and many centuries of human history, is the state it's in. And it's like, if we're going to find a better world, a more equal, a fairer, more just world, where children could grow up not seeing their grandfather humiliated at the petrol pump, where children could grow up not being bombed when they're in refugee tents, then we need to work together to make that better world. And of course, it'd be much better not to start from here to get to there, but here we have to start. And I guess my feeling is that the most powerful force in the world is love. I was just listening again to Bell Hooks' The Will to Change. And I think it's us guys, actually, that need to talk more about love, feel love more, and not being so goddamn macho and waving guns around. That's the love I'm talking about.
And I think that certainly does come through in so many ways. For many of us, there are some people here my age who actually remember the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. There were so many of us that were involved in so many ways. And I think that the idea of, not all of the things we remember necessarily. I don't know if we remember Ravona, the trial, but what we do remember, some of us, these old people, is that day, that weekend, bring back Nelson Mandela. And when Nelson Mandela came to New York, it matters to us in that way. It's important. And to know how, the thing that was amazing about what happened is how solidarity was responsible for what happened. So now to understand this what at one point was a secret aspect of this solidarity, but suddenly it's revealed. I think there was a book that came out by this name, and then we are now able to know this story. So it matters to us in that way, and it is about how that solidarity makes a difference, how it can do. And so we're seeing the timeliness of it too, because of what's happening now in Palestine. This idea that a powerful force can be opposed by solidarity and love, as you have said. So I think that's important. There's so many people, I want everybody to talk. But I do want to say one thing just before I'm done yet with Gordon. It's just like the aesthetic choices that you made in terms of so many aspects of this, bringing in, like reenactments and real subjective stories from people, the real stories from their own lips. Bringing, even just the idea of split screen, with all and thinking about that as cells in this rebuilding of an organization. And then just so many, the idea of engaging us in a way that feels like almost like a suspense, in some ways, waiting for the bombs to explode. I just think your aesthetic, the range and variety of aesthetic choices was very, it was just wonderful craft. And I guess that's why South Africa, with the film festival there, decided that this film was what now?
Best documentary. You made me say it.
So if you want to say a little bit about that, and then we're going to move along.
Okay, well, I'll be really brief. For me, I'm getting older too. I think we've all heard Granddad tell the same story 3 or 4 times, and we wanted to go and play or meet our girlfriend or something. And I think there's something I met all these guys, and they're just wonderful. But when I first sat down and talked to them, I could just see that young 20-year-old, because they become it again when they're talking. But I wanted a wider audience to be able to see that they were kids when they did this. They were very young. They did that thing and they answered it. So I really wanted to, and we spent a lot of time casting. We saw so many people because I had to find people that looked somewhere between the current self and the younger self in the photos.
You wanted a good-looking person to. Huh?
This struggle, Steve. But I also really wanted, obviously they needed to be able to act without speaking as well, because everything you hear is eyewitness testimony. There's no actor says anything, because that for me is where reconstruction or that whatever they call it, reenactment, falls down. As soon as you hear an actor talking and it's not really a thing. So for me, it was important that everything you hear is either eyewitness testimony or archive sound or, something really from the era. That's a rule that I did slightly break somewhere in the introduction, and then in terms of the blending of archive, we used James Barrett, one of our other producers, spent a lot of time here in South Africa, going around. We advertised on radio and in newspapers, looking for Super 8 archive that people had in their attics, because the apartheid era archive is very limited and everyone's seen it 10 million times. And it's in every film about apartheid South Africa, and we just wanted there to be some freshness to it. So that all of that stuff is Super 8 stuff that no one's ever seen before, shot. And we bought a little digital scanner, and James and his assistant traveled around South Africa for 6 weeks, just scanning Super 8 film up Super 8 film. So we've got an awful lot of films of babies and cats and elephants, but in amongst it were these incredible gems of the cities actually in those times. So we wanted to blend that in and give it a fresh look. But thank you very much. But obviously the important thing to say, of course, is that any filmmakers here know that filmmaking is not a solo activity. It's a massive team effort, and everybody in the team. It always seems unfair that no one ever takes the editor with them, because the films are made in the cutting room. The editor often does so much of that work, and so we bucked that trend. We took the editor to the film festival in Johannesburg, which was great. But it is a whole team, and everybody. I mean, you saw all the list of names, but everybody who did anything towards making this film work. Alex is here. I mean, Alex gave a contribution when we first were fundraising 9 years ago. I stayed in touch ever since. And, and it's great that he's finally seeing the film, nearly 10 years later. So, I mean, everybody makes a film. So it's not just two things. And I think I've talked way over my share. So that's it from me. Thank you very much, Rick.
Yeah. I would say we're going to hold him to that, but I doubt that we won't be able to. So the other thing about this is a co-production, which made it possible. And so I'd like maybe Jacintha and Colin to talk about, because I know that it's Britain. I mean, that was the empire, and then the South African aspect. And you're Welsh. I mean, I don't know how many partners there were to make this happen. So maybe we can hear about that.
Hi, good evening. This was a co-production between London or Britain and South Africa, and we shot most of our reenactments or the drama part in KZN, in KwaZulu-Natal. And I guess about 6 years ago, I was in London at the BFI Film Festival, and I met Gordon at our embassy. And we started talking about this project, and, I left, went back home and continued our conversation. And, from there, we found a way to work together, and we were funded by the KZN Folk Mission. And we worked together and really just, made sure that we empowered a lot of our people, because KZN is a region that is not as busy in the film industry, that Cape Town and Johannesburg is. So a lot of the crew, the cast, we saw some of the pictures. There were local youngsters that, was like their second time working in film. And I think that was encouraging. And today, we have a great film. So
yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yeah.
We shot major parts of this film in South Africa. And up there you can see the crew. And we worked very hard because when you shoot in South Africa, it does look a lot like apartheid. And the director and the first assistant director and the director of photography, all the kind of major roles are people who've worked on feature films a lot over the years, because South Africa is a major place for shooting feature films. And so on their CV, you can see that those are the best people for the jobs. And so we had to kind of see past the CV, and we had to see past people's experience, people who hadn't worked in a feature film or an international feature before, and make sure that our crew shot looked like it represented proper South Africa. And we put in lots of special measures thanks to Jacintha. They're working class English people. And you heard Eddie Adams at the end saying that really it was the British that were the major pillars of apartheid. Those were the people who were supporting the apartheid nation and making sure it steadied like that. In fact, they set up the apartheid long before the Afrikaners took over. They really did. It was a British effort, and slavery was a royal family effort. But in fact, yeah, right at the beginning, definitely. But in fact, there were two Brits. Even going back as like 1790s, there were 300,000 working class British families boycotting sugar in protest, in solidarity with enslaved workers in the West Indies. You go to the 1860s, and there were Manchester cotton workers boycotting cotton in solidarity with enslaved workers in America. And in the 60s and 70s, you had working class people working directly in opposition to their ruling class, in solidarity with the workers in South Africa. And there's a long tradition, and quite a lot. You see a lot of these middle-class do-gooders saying, the working class people are racist and we have to try and control them and stuff like that. But in fact, there's a long tradition of working class solidarity.
So maybe we can I'd like to hear some of the motivations of the recruits, It's that was a big ask.
I think we should also introduce ourselves very briefly.
My name's Bob Newen. I was a London recruit. I went to Johannesburg in 1971 and led off for the bombs. I was the person, or one of the two people, that the guy in the film saw the other side of the room. We didn't know there was someone else working in Johannesburg when we were, but that was the quality of the security. I went back in 1972 to meet a ship, which had been the first set of MK fighters trained overseas back into the country. We were the landing party for that, myself and Alex Mambaris and two other comrades as a backup team. We went for 3 weeks, stayed for 8. The ship kept breaking down, never arrived, and that was why Alex then 2 months later came back with Marie-Jo, his wife, and they were arrested in that mode. The motivation. We were young communists, many of us, socialists, internationalists, a range of different groups of people. But the one thing we shared in common was internationalism and a opposition to apartheid. I did because it was our government that was the architect of apartheid. The first racial laws were introduced not by the Afrikaners, but by the British government and the British colonial saviors. So we felt an obligation to do that. It was an extraordinary privilege to be asked to play this special role. We had no idea how important it was at the time. Most of us, with the few exceptions that you've seen, went there, did what we did and came back and got on with our lives. And we didn't talk about it for 40 years. No, because we were told not to. I went up with a guy called Peter to do the leaflet bombs. We never talked about it because you don't talk about it, you don't do it. So that's it. And I think we cannot let the moment go by without saying, however, it was the people of South Africa that made the greatest sacrifices. They bore the brunt of that struggle, and it was their big struggle. But in the big picture stuff, that liberation struggle, the ending of apartheid, was only the first step. We acted in solidarity with the people of South Africa to help them have the opportunity to take the decisions for their life in the future. But that struggle goes on. because the people that colonized that country, the people that exploited that country, the people that took the wealth, continue to do so. That, from my point of view, is a struggle against capitalism.
Yay. Well,
Okay. I think it's so. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name's Steve Marslin from South London. I was approached to go out to South Africa to help end the apartheid regime. And of course, I was amazed that they were asking me. It's the working class lad of Durban. But of course, we knew about the Vietnam War that was going on. We knew about the apartheid regime. A regime that told you who you could fall in love with. Just think about that for a minute. You weren't allowed to fall in love with someone a different colour than you. Racism was actually not only legal, it was compulsory in the white regime. There was no, you had to be a racist. Settler development, they called it, but we called it out and out racism. And we were going there, as you saw there, to fight that regime and to win. And we did. And we did. Thank you. Because so many people, it wasn't just us. I mean, you know, like we're kind of romantic, we're a bit. The anti-apartheid movement in our country, they stopped the rugby tours, they stopped the cricket tours, they kicked them out of the Olympic Games. Every single, we didn't buy their wine, we didn't buy their grapes, we didn't buy their apples. We actually were part of a mass movement that enjoyed that boycott. And that boycott and that mass movement that we were regarded in, and it weren't just socialists, I'm a socialist, I'm communist, but it weren't just us, liberals, there were church people, we all tried to contribute to the downfall of the apartheid regime. And whatever we think about now, about the current situation in South Africa and they're having their election today, one thing is certain, the South African people control. They have one person, one vote. They have a contribution. The 80% of the people that were denied that contribution now have that contribution. And when they go to a park, they don't see blanc, non-blanc. When they go to a cinema, it doesn't say white suddenly. When they go on a bus, it doesn't say, oh, you can't go on this bus anymore. Now, I'm not excusing that. We have problems in my country, you have problems in your country, and certainly most of us are disappointed at the lack of economic equality that is in South Africa now. But what I would say to you now is that it is a democratic country and that the South African people today have a right to decide who their next government is. And I think that's tremendous progress.
last thing, I just want to say this man's a good actor. I mean, he was not an actor, but he's a good presence in a film. So that's, we're talking about you.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much. That was just me being me.
All right, pass it on. Thank you.
I don't want to repeat what my recruiters have said because it's just repeating what I already endorsed. I joined the Young Communist League when I was 14, came from working class, revolutionary family. And I got involved in all of the struggles. There were two major struggles around that time, around the 60s, internationally, I mean, Vietnam and South Africa. And actually, we won both, but those two major ones, we did. And whatever's happened since, that can't be taken away from the Vietnamese and the South African people. They won their freedom because of, obviously, first of all, their own efforts. Secondly, because they had international support. And I was brought up as an internationalist. And so being a good internationalist, 19 years of age, I went to my local Barclays bank manager and I asked for a meeting with it. I think it's absolutely outrageous and I think everyone should withdraw their funding from you and I am going to close my account, please. So, okay, well, you owe us £350, so what do you pay? So, well, I've made my point. And I really I've enjoyed my stay so far, and I want to thank you all for coming. Oh, I really do. We have a common bond. Solidarity is one word for it, but love is another.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for that theater. I really enjoy it, and thank you for your work. I'd like to add that, yes, there was the Vietnam War that time, and it was South Africa. There was also the Civil Rights Movement.
There you go.
It was very awesome. Okay, and I'd also like to say that, or ask, what was going on the ground, because blacks in your country were having a hard time. I mean, the racism there was unbelievable. So I was wondering, I know you don't have a lot of time, but certainly the West Indians who were there, you have a great population of West Indians, and I have seen several films where, the treatment of blacks at that time was horrendous.
Good point.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll remember the Soweto uprising in June 16th, 1976. I myself was arrested by the Special Patrol Group, accused of handbag snatching, and shoplifting. That really changed my life and made me believe that I was a petty criminal. That was in 1975, and it's no coincidence that the first major riot in modern times in Britain, burning cars and giving the police a good hiding, was August 1976. So just a couple of weeks later than the Soweto uprising. And I would say that we were boiling up and we had enough of the police, but also there were people among us who were aware of what was happening in South Africa and educating us, and that was on our road.
So it was known. Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Carl Dix. I'm with Revolution Books and the RevComp Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. I've got involved in the struggle against the apartheid regime in South Africa in 1972 when I got out of Leavenworth Military Penitentiary, where they sent me for refusing to go to Vietnam. And the heroism that was dramatized and the sacrifice here brought back to my mind Soweto. I'm glad you brought that up. And the much greater sacrifice that people heroically did to get rid of apartheid. But here we are now. And see, it's not enough to just say, well, it didn't come out like we wanted it to. The people of South Africa ain't free. They ain't in control. Imperialism is still in control. And what that points to me is you got to get rid of apartheid. We got to get rid of it in Palestine. We got to get rid of Israeli apartheid. But that has to be done as part of making a thorough revolution to actually liberate the people. And let's not forget, U.S. imperialism was big in South Africa, and it is huge in the Zionist Israeli regime and the genocide they're carrying out. That's why we say from Palestine for the USA, real revolution is the way. And you got to fight apartheid as part of that struggle to liberate people. Not just it's the first step and then maybe later you'll step again. But the struggle has to go that way. And there's a piece here from revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, ending apartheid as part of ending all oppression. South Africa is not a model. And if you didn't get a copy of it, we got some more. I want people to see this and read it, because people did a great thing in ending apartheid. But it ain't enough to just end apartheid and leave the same structure with people, most of the people in the same conditions. I mean, we got a few African millionaires, so what about the overwhelming majority of the African people?
Yeah, my question is for Jacintha. As conducer on this, you had mentioned earlier on that you had to go and see London first and continued on your conversation once you got back. As a woman of color who is there through apartheid, what was it about that script that gripped you to be a part of this production and bring the story to life?
Well, one, I didn't know that white people actually helped us. Right? I really did know that there were a lot of people that actually helped in liberating our country. So for me, that was fascinating. And I was like, no, that didn't happen. And he's like, no, nah, I don't believe it. Because we also had this narrative in South Africa that, all white people weren't, people, the enemy. Well, at least from my point of view. And even now, when we were doing our Johannesburg Film Festival, there was a young girl that said, after watching the movie, she goes, I didn't know white people helped us. She's like 21. And so for me, it was just be able to tell that story, that it did happen, and make people realize it's about international solidarity and that we can all come together. And that was special. And also just to remind young people like what we had to fight for freedom and to end apartheid. Lots of our young people they don't know the struggle. They don't know about apartheid. Our youngsters are just so much into social media and all sorts of other things. But when they watch this film, their eyes are open and they have an appreciation for the freedom that they have today, because it came at a cost, and we know what that cost is. So thank you.
Can I just say one last thing too as well, Rico, just to thank Mahan for starting this festival, for keeping it going for 31 years.
And for proud of it there, made that all he said to stop.